What if one of the biggest lies people are taught is that being a good person is enough to succeed? It sounds harsh, maybe even controversial, but look around. Every day, talented people are ignored, loyal people are betrayed, and hardworking individuals watch others move ahead faster. The uncomfortable truth is that the world often rewards perception before it rewards virtue. And whether people like it or not, that's a reality Machiavelli understood centuries ago. Most people spend their lives playing a game whose rules they never learned. They believe that honesty automatically creates trust, that effort automatically creates success, and that good intentions automatically create good outcomes. Then they wonder why they feel invisible, powerless, or stuck. The gap between expectation and reality becomes a source of frustration, disappointment, and confusion. That's where the principles of psychology begin to reveal something most people never notice. Now, here's the paradox. The individuals who seem to possess the most influence are not always the smartest, strongest, or even the most talented. Often, they simply understand human nature better. They understand power, perception, emotions, and strategy. They recognize the hidden motivations driving people, and because of that, they move through life with a level of clarity that others mistake for luck. This video is not about becoming manipulative or abandoning your values. It's about understanding the forces that shape behavior, status, authority, and success. You'll discover why emotional mastery is often more valuable than intelligence, why perception can outweigh reality, why scarcity creates value, and why the Machiavellian mindset continues to influence leaders, entrepreneurs, and powerful individuals to this day. But be warned, once these ideas are understood, it's difficult to see the world the same way again. Because the most dangerous thing about Machiavelli's lessons isn't that they're dark. It's that they often explain reality far better than the comforting stories people prefer to believe. Most people spend years living in the world of should. People should be fair. Hard work should always be rewarded. Loyalty should always be returned. But the person who begins to understand psychology quickly notices a different pattern. The world often operates according to incentives, not intentions. That's a hard pill to swallow, yet it explains why so many talented and well-meaning people remain frustrated. Machiavelli understood this deeply, and his observations still feel surprisingly relevant today. A young professional may enter a company believing that effort alone will guarantee recognition. He arrives early, works hard, helps everyone, and expects that his value will naturally be noticed. Then someone less skilled, but more socially aware, gets promoted first. At first, it feels unfair, but reality isn't always a moral scoreboard. Human behavior is influenced by perception, self-interest, relationships, and influence. Understanding this doesn't make someone cynical. It makes him aware of the actual game being played. One of the greatest shifts in a Machiavellian mindset happens when a person stops asking, "How should people behave?" and starts asking, "How do people actually behave?" That's where real power begins. Human beings are often driven by personal benefit, emotional comfort, fear, status, and survival. Even acts that appear generous can sometimes contain hidden motives. This isn't a reason to lose faith in humanity. It's a reason to develop clearer vision and stronger judgment. Imagine a sailor navigating a storm. If he ignores the waves because he believes the sea should be calm, disaster becomes inevitable. The wise sailor studies the ocean exactly as it is. Life works much the same way. A person who understands psychology doesn't waste energy arguing with reality. Instead, he learns its patterns, adapts to them, and moves forward with strategy. The goal isn't to become cold. The goal is to become effective without losing awareness. Many people secretly suffer because their expectations create unnecessary disappointment. They expect gratitude from those they help. They expect loyalty from people who never promised it. They expect honesty from individuals whose actions repeatedly prove otherwise. Then they feel betrayed when reality delivers a different outcome. Emotional mastery begins when a person stops building castles out of expectations and starts evaluating people based on consistent behavior, rather than hopeful assumptions. This is where things become interesting. Once someone accepts reality without resentment, a new question naturally appears. If people respond more to perception than intention, if influence often shapes outcomes more than merit alone, then perhaps understanding reality is only the first step. The next challenge is learning how reality itself is shaped, interpreted, and presented by those who know how to control what others see. The moment a person understands reality as it is, he begins to notice something even more surprising. People rarely respond to who someone truly is. They respond to who they believe that person is. That's one of the most important lessons in psychology. Two individuals may possess the same intelligence, character, and competence, yet the one who manages perception more effectively often gains more influence. It may sound uncomfortable at first, but history repeatedly shows that reputation frequently arrives before truth ever gets a chance to speak. Many people misunderstand this idea and assume it means becoming fake. That's not the lesson at all. Machiavelli never suggested that a person should lose himself. Rather, he understood that there is a difference between the private self and the public self. Every successful leader, entrepreneur, athlete, and public figure manages this distinction. The private self contains doubts, fears, mistakes, and vulnerabilities. The public self communicates confidence, direction, and stability. Both can exist at the same time without contradiction. Think about a captain guiding a ship through rough waters. The crew doesn't need to see every concern running through his mind. They need to see composure. Even if he is calculating risks internally, his calm demeanor provides certainty to everyone around him. In the same way, a person seeking power learns that emotional transparency in every moment is not always wisdom. Sometimes leadership requires projecting stability while processing uncertainty in private. That's not deception, it's responsibility. A practical example can be seen during conflict. When someone receives criticism, the natural impulse is often to defend himself immediately. Yet the individual with a developed Machiavellian mindset understands the hidden advantage of composure. Instead of reacting emotionally, he pauses, he listens, he speaks slowly. Ironically, this controlled response often creates more respect than a perfectly crafted argument. People frequently judge confidence not by words alone, but by the ability to remain calm under pressure. Appearance also plays a larger role than most people want to admit. Humans make judgments within seconds. Clothing, posture, eye contact, tone of voice, and even pacing communicate information long before a conversation begins. Someone may dislike this reality, but denying it won't change it. The wise person studies these signals and uses them intentionally. Through strategy, he ensures that his external presentation aligns with the value he wants others to recognize. What makes this even more powerful is the ability to guide narratives before others create them for you. If a person never manages his reputation, someone else eventually will. Rumors, assumptions, and misunderstandings naturally fill empty spaces. Those who understand influence learn to communicate their values through consistent actions, controlled behavior, and deliberate choices. And once perception is mastered, another challenge emerges: knowing when to display strength openly and when to conceal it behind subtle intelligence. That's where the lion and the fox enter the story. Before we continue, let me tell you something. If what you've heard so far resonates with you, if you've started to realize that success is often shaped by perception, influence, and understanding human nature, then you'll want to read the Silent Influence Code. Inside, you'll discover the psychological signals that shape how people perceive, trust, and respond to you. Inspired by timeless Machiavellian principles and modern psychology, it's a practical guide for mastering your presence, reputation, and influence in everyday life. If you're ready to stop being overlooked and start understanding the hidden dynamics behind social power, click the link in the pinned comment and get your copy now. Now, let's continue. One of the most famous lessons associated with Machiavelli is the image of the lion and the fox. At first glance, it seems simple. The lion represents strength, courage, and raw power. The fox represents intelligence, adaptability, and strategy. Most people naturally gravitate toward one side or the other. Some try to dominate every situation through force, while others rely entirely on cleverness. Yet the true lesson lies in understanding that neither approach is sufficient by itself. The lion has the ability to frighten wolves, but he cannot always recognize traps. The fox can identify traps, but he cannot always scare away predators. In life, the same principle appears everywhere. A business owner may have incredible confidence, but fail because he ignores subtle dangers. Another may be highly intelligent, yet constantly avoided because he never demonstrates strength. Psychology teaches that people respect competence, but they also respect the ability to protect boundaries when necessary. A common mistake is believing that every challenge deserves a response. Many people waste enormous amounts of energy fighting battles that never mattered in the first place. Someone makes a rude comment online. A coworker seeks attention through petty conflict. An acquaintance tries to provoke a reaction. The inexperienced person immediately engages. The strategic person asks a different question. Will this matter in 6 months? Often, silence defeats small threats more effectively than confrontation ever could. However, there are moments when avoidance becomes weakness. A serious threat to reputation, opportunity, or long-term goals sometimes requires decisive action. This is where the lion emerges. The individual with a developed Machiavellian mindset knows that hesitation can occasionally be more dangerous than action itself. He doesn't enjoy conflict, but he doesn't run from it either. When a boundary must be defended, he acts with clarity rather than emotional chaos. Adaptability is another hidden advantage of combining the lion and the fox. Many people become predictable because they react the same way every time. Competitors, rivals, and even friends quickly learn how to anticipate them. But the person who understands influence develops flexibility. Sometimes he speaks, sometimes he remains silent, sometimes he advances, sometimes he waits. Because his behavior isn't governed by impulse, others find him difficult to manipulate or control. Years ago, a mentor shared an observation that stayed with many of his students. He said that the strongest player in any game is rarely the loudest one. Instead, it is often the individual who can change approaches without changing objectives. He remains committed to the destination while remaining flexible about the route. And that level of control introduces an even deeper challenge. Because mastering external situations means very little if a person cannot first master what happens inside himself. That's where the real battle begins. Most people believe their greatest obstacles come from difficult circumstances, unfair competition, or bad luck. Yet, when examined closely through the lens of psychology, a different enemy often appears. It is not the rival across the table. It is not the critic in the crowd. It is the inability to govern one's own emotions. A moment of anger can destroy years of progress. A burst of insecurity can sabotage an opportunity. An uncontrolled reaction can reveal weaknesses that patience would have concealed. Machiavelli understood that power is rarely lost in a single dramatic event. More often, it slips away through emotional impulsiveness. The person who constantly reacts becomes predictable. And once someone becomes predictable, he becomes easier to manipulate. Think about how easily a skilled provocateur can control another person simply by triggering anger. Suddenly, the victim believes he is acting freely, while in reality his behavior is being directed by someone else. That's not strength. That's dependency, disguised as confidence. One of the most valuable forms of emotional mastery is learning to observe before reacting. Imagine someone receiving criticism in front of a group. The immediate temptation is to defend himself, argue, or prove his point. But the strategic individual pauses. He studies the situation. Is the criticism valid? Is it emotional? Is it a trap designed to provoke a reaction? That brief moment of observation often reveals more useful information than an entire emotional confrontation. In many situations, silence becomes a weapon far more powerful than words. A useful analogy is that of a lake. When the water is disturbed, it becomes impossible to see what lies beneath the surface. But when the water becomes still, everything becomes visible. The mind works in much the same way. Emotional turbulence clouds judgment. Strategic detachment restores clarity. This doesn't mean suppressing feelings or pretending they don't exist. It means refusing to let emotions take control of decisions. The person remains aware of his feelings without becoming a servant to them. Many people confuse authority with intimidation. They assume that being feared automatically creates respect. Yet lasting influence usually comes from a more balanced equation. Excessive fear creates resentment. Excessive friendliness invites disrespect. The individual who understands strategy learns to occupy the space between those extremes. He becomes approachable, but not easily manipulated. Respectful, but not submissive. Firm, but not unnecessarily aggressive. This balance creates a presence that others instinctively take seriously. What makes this lesson especially important is that emotional control affects every other aspect of life. Reputation, leadership, relationships, and decision-making all depend on it. A person who cannot govern himself will eventually struggle to govern anything else. And once emotional discipline is established, a new question emerges. If emotions no longer dictate decisions, how should decisions actually be made? That question leads directly into one of the most misunderstood ideas in the Machiavellian mindset: the relationship between morality, outcomes, and decisive action. One of the hardest lessons for most people to accept is that good intentions and good outcomes are not always the same thing. A person can mean well and still create disaster. Another can make a difficult, unpopular decision and ultimately prevent greater harm. This is where Machiavelli's thinking often shocks people. He encouraged leaders to judge actions not only by intentions, but by consequences. In psychology, this reflects a simple truth. Reality responds to results far more often than it rewards noble motives alone. Consider a leader who avoids making a difficult decision because he doesn't want to upset anyone. At first, this may appear kind. Yet, as problems grow, more people suffer because action was delayed. Compare that to a leader who addresses the issue early, even at the cost of temporary criticism. The second leader may seem harsh in the moment, but his decision protects the larger objective. The difference lies in strategy. One seeks comfort, the other seeks effectiveness. And in the long run, effectiveness often proves to be the more compassionate choice. This principle applies far beyond leadership positions. A person may remain in a toxic friendship because he feels guilty about creating distance. Another may tolerate constant disrespect because confrontation feels uncomfortable. In both cases, avoidance disguises itself as kindness. Yet every day spent accepting harmful behavior quietly reinforces it. The individual with a developed Machiavellian mindset understands that boundaries are not acts of cruelty, they are acts of self-respect. Sometimes the most responsible decision is also the most difficult one. Of course, there is an important distinction between necessary harshness and destructive cruelty. Many people confuse the two. Necessary harshness serves a purpose. It protects values, goals, relationships, or stability. Cruelty, on the other hand, seeks harm for its own sake or for personal gratification. The strategic individual recognizes this difference. He does not create enemies unnecessarily. He does not enjoy conflict. He simply understands that certain situations require firmness if long-term objectives are to be preserved. One practical habit that strengthens decisive action is reducing the time spent negotiating endlessly with oneself. Have you ever noticed how often people already know what they should do, yet spend weeks or months delaying it? They gather more opinions, consume more information, and wait for perfect certainty. Meanwhile, opportunities disappear, influence weakens, momentum fades. The wise person gathers enough information to make a sound judgment, then commits. Perfection is rarely available. Progress is. Interestingly, decisive action creates something that cannot be manufactured through words alone: credibility. People trust individuals who consistently align decisions with objectives. They may not always agree with them, but they understand where they stand. And once someone develops this reputation, another powerful principle begins to emerge. Value often increases, not through constant presence, but through selective absence. The person who can stand on his own feet without chasing approval enters a completely different game, one built on scarcity, autonomy, and the creation of a personal kingdom. One of the most misunderstood sources of power is absence. Most people assume that value is created by being constantly available, constantly visible, and constantly seeking attention. yet psychology often reveals the opposite. Things that are always available are frequently taken for granted. Things that are rare tend to attract curiosity and respect. This principle appears everywhere, from relationships to business to leadership. The person who understands scarcity learns that presence becomes more valuable when it is not endlessly distributed. A common mistake is confusing accessibility with importance. Someone answers every message immediately, accepts every invitation, and rearranges his schedule for everyone else's priorities. At first, this may seem generous. Over time, however, others begin to assume that his time has little value. Meanwhile, the individual who protects his attention sends a different signal. Without saying a word, he communicates that his time is invested deliberately. Influence often grows when a person stops making himself available to everyone at every moment. Mystery plays an important role here as well. Human beings are naturally curious. When people know everything about someone, curiosity fades. But when a person reveals himself selectively, interest often increases. This doesn't mean becoming secretive or playing manipulative games. It means understanding that not every thought, plan, success, or struggle needs to be broadcast immediately. The Machiavellian mindset recognizes that silence can sometimes protect opportunities long before they become reality. Perhaps the greatest form of freedom comes from reducing dependence on external validation. Many individuals spend years allowing their mood to rise and fall based on opinions, likes, praise, or criticism. They become prisoners of reactions they cannot control. Emotional mastery changes this equation. The person begins measuring progress through his own standards rather than the shifting approval of others. Ironically, people often gain more respect the moment they stop chasing it. Think of a king building a kingdom. He does not construct it on borrowed land, borrowed beliefs, or borrowed confidence. He builds it on foundations that belong to him. In modern life, that kingdom may represent skills, discipline, knowledge, financial independence, strong boundaries, meaningful relationships, and a clear vision for the future. Strategy becomes the architecture. Consistent action becomes the bricks. Time becomes the silent partner that strengthens everything being built. This is ultimately where the teachings of Machiavelli, psychology, influence, power, strategy, emotional mastery, and the Machiavellian mindset converge, not in manipulation for its own sake, but in the creation of a life that is governed from within rather than controlled from outside. A life where perception is understood, emotions are mastered, decisions are deliberate, and freedom becomes the highest form of success. The question is no longer whether the world can be controlled. The real question is whether a person is willing to govern himself strongly enough to build a kingdom that no one can take away. By now, you've seen that power is rarely about domination, luck, or brute force. More often, it comes from understanding psychology, mastering your emotions, controlling your reactions, and seeing reality as it truly is. The principles explored in this video are not merely theories from Machiavelli or lessons from a distant past. They are patterns that continue to shape human behavior, influence, leadership, and success in every generation. The real question is not whether these dynamics exist. The real question is whether you are willing to recognize them and use them wisely. Will you continue reacting emotionally when patience would serve you better? Will you keep seeking validation from others? Or will you begin building your own kingdom based on discipline, strategy, and self-respect? Will you allow circumstances to dictate your future? Or will you take responsibility for becoming the architect of your own life? A true Machiavellian mindset is not about manipulation for the sake of manipulation. It is about clarity. It is about understanding the game without becoming consumed by it. It is about developing emotional mastery, strengthening your judgment, and making decisions that align with your long-term vision rather than your temporary feelings. The person who can govern himself will always be more powerful than the person who only seeks to govern others. Take a moment and reflect honestly. Which lesson challenged your beliefs the most? Which principle do you think most people ignore? And perhaps the most important question of all, if you continue living exactly as you are today, where will you be 5 years from now? The answer to that question may reveal more than you expect. If this video gave you a new perspective on power, influence, psychology, strategy, and the timeless wisdom of Machiavelli. Make sure to put these lessons into practice. Knowledge without action changes nothing, but applied knowledge can transform an entire life. And now, I'd like to hear from you. Which of Machiavelli's principles do you believe is the most powerful and the most dangerous? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and activate the notification bell so you don't miss future content on psychology, influence, emotional mastery, strategy, and the Machiavellian mindset. Until next time, remember, the greatest kingdom you will ever rule is yourself.